Sometimes we bite off a little more than we can chew. Trust me, happens to the best of us. But we got you covered. After every major episode, a Pilaf Bite is coming your way. Shorter, faster, all the flavor. Pilaf Bites, only on Pilaf Entertainment.
Pilaf.
I feel.
I understand. When you're ready, tell me.
I will.
Now we move into the fun part, various game releases. Now, so we do have a base idea for the console. Let's just say internally we're working with a first-gen PS5 or even a late-gen PS4 Pro, with all the bells and whistles. Streaming, Blu-ray 4K player, all the works. Like I said, we will get into a little more of that later. And for the sake of argument, and almost out of necessity, Sega has prepared all of their third-party relations. As much as I and many other fans would love a new NFL 2K game, that's just not where we are in gaming. Sega gets all the new EA and 2K releases, COD releases, and in a way, this is what's going to set them apart. In addition to having all the things we're going to get into, this is basically going to be the best of both worlds. You're looking for the best AAA experiences? It's gonna be there. You're looking for an in-depth single-player game? It's gonna be there. You want family-friendly adventures or fun games with your friends? They will be there. If you want a blast from the past with retro releases, they are gonna be there. And in fact, that's where we're going to start. As so many fans and creators have talked about, this basically has to be almost a legacy backlog console in a way. In this case, take a page out of Nintendo's book. With the Switch, they basically have been getting the last generation to all who couldn't experience it. However, it's really only the best of the best. So let's start there. In this case, I feel you need to push the Saturn and the Dreamcast very, very much in the first year, and obviously in the lead up to the release. These are the consoles that really didn't have a chance to shine, especially the Dreamcast, because so many of these games were just so ahead of their time. Here's exactly what I had in mind. There would be two ways these games would get released: the Rewind way and the Ages way. Oh, and unless I say otherwise, all of these games would be announced and released during the build-up for the console and within the first year. Sega's Rewind editions would be the digital-only releases of, at least at the start, 5 to 10 of the best games per console. So in this case, 5 for the Master System, CD, 32X, and Game Gear, and then 10 for the Dreamcast, Saturn, and Genesis. For the Rewind edition, these are basically pushing to be the most faithful port of the game with a fresh coat of paint. The best way I can describe it is what Nintendo did with Mario 64 for the 35th anniversary, but better. For both of these editions, we'll be using Jet Set Radio as an example. Basically, these would just take the original ROMs and upscale them to 1080p, fix bugs and glitches, optimize it for modern controls, and give it basic emulation features like options to add scan lines, save states, etc. And notice how I didn't mention widescreen. These are truly just taking the original game and making it playable for modern audiences. Original aspect ratio and all. The thing with these though is none of them would be over 3,200 yen or 1999 pounds and USD. Plus, there always are going to be sales, and all of these games are going to be available at launch. Now, for my physical media fans, I know that this hurts a bit, but overall, I don't think that these all need an individual release. However, I would plan to release a collection called the Sega Rewind Insert Console Edition. These would be the 10 games mentioned all on one disc for 6,300 yen or $39.99. Really taking inspiration from the Sonic collections. They would add general stuff too. Say for the Dreamcast edition, there would be interviews, movies for all of the games, and remixes for the most popular tracks, and maybe even a bonus game. Now, the Ages edition is a whole nother story. This would be the objective best way to play these games. 4K upscale with widescreen, bug fixes, controls, but now add more. If we're using something like Jet Set Radio, it would remix, remake, and remaster all the tracks and add 10 more. 3 new areas with more missions, more characters, more customization options, and it would be the complete version. What I mean by that is, sometimes games will leave out or cut something that was in the Japan version but won't be in the North American release, or something that's in the North American release won't be in the PAL version. All of that would be over, as all content from all games would be in this version so everyone gets the same game. Even the case would contain a thank you letter from Sega and a mini synopsis about the game, and on the back of this letter would be a free download code for the Rewind version of this game, with 4 box arts. There would be the Ages Edition cover, which would take inspo from all of the box arts, but included would be the box art from all 3 regions as reversible covers, and all of this would be no more than 8,000 yen or $49.99. And we really would get those prices when we get to the Dreamcast games. Now, the main catch with this would be only 3 would be releasing for each major console except the Master System. 3 Genesis, Saturn, and Dreamcast games would all come first. Long story short, the Rewind Edition is the most faithful port of the original game with very little done to improve it. Just an upscale and general quality of life improvements plus digital only. The Ages Edition would be the updated, complete, objective, best way to play these games plus more. If I had to pick, I would say Altered Beast, Phantasy Star, and Gunstar Heroes for the Genesis, Nights into Dreams, Panzer Dragoon, and Guardian Heroes for the Saturn, and the Dreamcast will actually get 4, with Jet Set Radio, Skies of Arcadia, Crazy Taxi, and 1 more. Now let's go ahead and move into all the other software. So I actually really like Marks on Media's idea about bringing some games from Capcom and Bandai Namco and just making them exclusives.
Cool. So, like, if you made these high budget versions of these games, I think that would generate a lot of buzz. And then on top of that, you need to lock down some console exclusives from other companies like Capcom and Konami. Sort of like a proof of concept that yes, there's major support coming in from these big companies.
And I do have a few for this, and I'm actually going to add Konami to the mix. For them, I'm actually going to say a brand new 3D Contra game. Capcom, I'm going to say re-release SNK vs. Capcom and make a new one, plus a new DMC. And for Bandai Namco, it should be a brand new 3D Space Combat Galaxian game and the Soul Calibur series. Yes, that includes Soul Calibur 7. Now, this is one time I'm going to admit my bias is going to come in because I love the Soul Calibur series. 3 is actually one of my favorite games of all time, and I think it's actually better than 2, but we'll get into that hot take later. But this still is going back to Sega's roots because the Dreamcast actually saw the first release of the series at home, and many say this is where it got its fans and pulled to release Soul Calibur 2, which is considered the best game in the series and one of the best arena fighters of all time. Speaking of which, I think that not long after launch, an HD remaster bundle of 1, 2, and 3 should release to build the hype for 7, giving fans a chance to see the best of the best from the series. Speaking of which, to call back on Mark's video, he actually mentions that yes, in a way this whole thing is possible, but none of these games can be B-grade. And I completely agree with this as well. These need to be amazing and top tier ports, remasters, and new games, especially if you're talking about revisiting an old series, and most importantly, to keep the console alive. And also show that within 1 year, you didn't come back for just a generation. You came to stay. Lastly, on the third party stuff, the only thing I really could think of is maybe some sort of agreement for cheaper games with 2K, mainly because Sega actually used to own 2K for the longest time, and maybe as a nod to them, they could make it to where it's cheapest to buy it on the Cosmos. Or you get some sort of perk. I haven't really played these in a long time, so I didn't really think it out too much. But now, Sega's properties. I've decided to go with 25 properties for the year and 10 available on launch day, a mix of old, new, remasters, and remakes. This is actually not including the Rewind games. That will actually be available on the Sega store, so technically over 50 games will be available at launch that are Sega exclusive. The 10 will consist of a new Puyo Puyo game, Super Monkey Ball, Virtua Tennis, Initial D Racing game for home consoles, Persona 6, Like a Dragon, a new Panzer Dragoon, Jet Set Radio, the Ages Edition, a new Echo the Dolphin game, and then the other 15, we would have Altered Beast, Phantasy Star, Gunstar Heroes, Nights into Dreams, Panzer Dragoon, Guardian Heroes, Skies of Arcadia, Crazy Taxi, all getting Ages remasters. Then Virtua Fighter 6, Soul Calibur 7, a new 3D Golden Axe game, and the 3 other slots for new original properties. And Okay, I can't get around it any longer. You probably have noticed by this point, but I have been avoiding a certain name this whole time. He's of course a big reason why Sega even made it this far as a company. His fans have made it through the good and many, many, many bad times. I've been avoiding him not because he's not important, but because he literally deserves his own section. All my humans, I would like to introduce the concept of System Sonic. Truly, what can I say that has not been said a billion times over? Sonic is an anthropomorphic blue hedgehog created by Yuji Naka, Naoto Oshima, and Hirokazu Yasuhara. The first game, simply named Sonic the Hedgehog, released in 1991 for the Sega Genesis to rival Nintendo's Mario, and the rest is genuinely history. Sonic went on to become one of the most recognizable fictional characters of all time, tying with Mario in 1993 for the highest earning entertainment character of the year, earning $500 million. And by 2014, the franchise has grossed over $5 billion. To kick things off, this would literally be a separate section for the Sonic system, the name coming from a solar system. Literally as appreciation to the franchise, Sonic should have his own solar system in the Cosmos. This would have all the mainline Sonic games at launch as well. Now, Kuro Talks actually did do a video, and I'm pretty sure a video series, and a lot of answers were given, but I'm just going to go with this one by Julie Rocket. They said Sonic 1, CD, 2, 3, and Knuckles, Mania, Superstars, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, Heroes, Shadow, Secret Rings, Unleashed, Black Knight, Colors, Sonic and Shadow Generations, Lost World, Forces, Frontiers, and Dream Team. In this case, I'm not here to open up a whole discussion. That's actually why I recommended the video. But point being, all of these would be available at launch, and the only versions I feel should get a Sega Rewind release are Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, mainly because these are the best Sonic games that not everybody got to play. And of course, the last 2 slots for release day and the Sega exclusive in year 1 will be taken by Sonic. In my opinion, you have 3 options. Either release a truly perfect boost game, story, animations, and all, with 80% boost gameplay and the longest in the gameplay type. Truly sit back and make a Sonic Adventure 3, or make a true, lengthy, and replayable open-world Sonic game. Once again, I am not going to get into what makes a perfect Sonic game. So let's just say whatever your headcanon of a perfect Sonic game is for all of these releases, that's what it would have to be. Because it would have to be a candidate for at least a top 5 Sonic game of all time. The boost game, I feel, would really be good for familiar sake. So many people are used to this formula basically for the last 20 years at the time of this console's release. And if you're trying to get new fans, this could be the safest option, but I feel the length and story would have to be some of the best told in any of these games. Sonic Adventure 3 would be calling on the nostalgia. Basically modernizing the Sonic Adventure story and gameplay could work, especially with the best versions of 1 and 2 being available on this console. But I think they would have to just go all out and make a true perfect 3D open world Sonic game. Once again, we're not really going to get into what this would be, but this is where you call on fans and fan developers just like Sonic Mania. There are so many fans who have made demos and short games where running around like Sonic in a 3D world feels amazing. Also, this is where I would comment on the power of the console and basically look at this as a new era of Sonic. Once again, take a page out of Nintendo's book. Push to make the game look beautiful because the actual game itself looks beautiful. You don't have to push for this super realistic gameplay, just make it look beautiful in its own way, and the console will have the power to take that and display it in 60 frames 4K. My main point is just don't make that the selling point. Make the fact that the game is going to be great your selling point. Now, the second Sonic release in year 1 would also be the first remake of a Sega property on this console. If you didn't notice when I listed the mainline games, I didn't mention one. I feel that at some point within the first 8 months, they should remake and almost fully reimagine Sonic the Hedgehog, aka Sonic 06. Now again, release-wise, Sega has already confirmed that the 4th Sonic movie is reported to release at some point in early 2027. Of course, it would actually be a really big push for the console itself, but also a push for these 2 Sonic games. And it has been rumored that certain Sega executives would love to move forward with a remake of it.
Sonic 06 is widely regarded as one of the worst Sonic games ever made, one of the worst video games ever made, one of the worst pieces of media ever made. So if Sonic Team made an actually good remake, that would be the biggest comeback story, the biggest redemption arc of all time.
Bouncing once again off of what Kiro said, this would be so poetic and honestly add to the redemption arc of not only Sonic, but Sega. If you remember, Sonic 06 was supposed to be a bit of a reboot for the Sonic series, and it had so much confidence behind it that Sonic Team just renamed it the original game. So to come back as a console manufacturer with all of these things, and remaking not only one of the worst Sega-produced games, but one of the worst games of all time into a Metacritic must-play and Game of the Year nominee? I don't really think there's a bigger way that Sega could declare that they are back in this race. The last thing here is supporting new franchises, indie projects, and a backlog. In this case, we're talking about all the greatest hits from basically the last 2 gens, getting your indie gems like Celeste and Shovel Knight, plus things like the FNAF library of games, way to the bigger releases like GTA 5, Minecraft, etc. And I think it would be a good idea just to pick up some indie projects / AA games. Find maybe 2 or 3 that you enjoy and back them, maybe make those Sega and PC only. And maybe not in year 1, but at the console's launch, reveal a brand new Sega-only franchise. Now, we actually are in a bit of a kawaii era, so maybe a 2D platformer with characters that just make you go, aww. Lastly, some type of heavy story-driven action game. The Last of Us, RE4 Remake, God of War, Uncharted, something that would release early in the console's life, just maybe not year 1, that is just a game with an amazing story and action. And yeah, I think that covers all of my opinions on what I think the software should be. Now, lastly, let's get into hardware releases and how you would actually see a fresh Sega console out of the box.
Be right back, we just need to buff the scratches out of our old discs.
Take a microfiber towel and add a little bit of white toothpaste. The CD has huge gashes or cracks, this isn't going to fix them, but for fine scratches, this is a cheap and effective method.
We'll be right back with this episode of Heart Talks Games. Grew up doing the spirit bomb? Naruto running in school? Or sending people to the Shadow Realm? Yeah, so did this guy.
This is the best version. Absolute pioneer. You know what? Just read the manga.
Heart Talks Anime, only on Pilaf Entertainment.
Pilaf.